Gentlemen, would you believe that the television program Stranger Things was based on a true story?
How true are we talking?
The Reagan era was just like that.
All right, well, first of all, let's not get into definitions here. True is a relative term that really, if you think about it, depends on the perspective of the person analyzing whether or not something is true. As far as Preston Nichols is concerned, the Montauk Project is very real.
I was going to say, if we're getting into the definition of truth here, see a debate between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson from 10 years ago.
Truth is whatever you need it to be, Aiden. I mean, I will say this. For the first couple of pages of the Montauk Project.
Which is what?
Well, so, all right. So I guess here's what I should get into. There is a conspiracy theory going back to the 1980s.
Okay.
Supposedly going back to the 1980s, that throughout the 1970s and into the early 80s, there was a series of experiments happening in New York. That these experiments were generally centered around psychic activity, the ability to manipulate things with your mind and whatnot, and that they did all sorts of things, everything from telepathy to mind control to, in fact, and this is the one that you don't really hear about a lot when you hear people talk about the Montauk Project, time travel with the mind, opening up portals and such.
Like looking back into time,
no,
or
like
actually traveling
there? Yeah.
Okay.
I have read a lot of books for this job. I've read many things in my time. I have read few things so frustratingly incoherent as the book The Montauk Project. I mean, we are talking about from the beginning, I just want to point this out. In the very beginning of the book, Preston Nichols, who is the guy who claims that he was there, that he went through this, all of these things, says that you can read this book as science fiction if you prefer, which is a great disclaimer. Here's the thing. I wouldn't read it as science fiction because written as a man's account of events he took part in, a memoir almost, it passes. Written as science fiction literature, it is terrible. It is horribly written. It is deeply incoherent. And it's kind of like, if you like read or watch the show The Expanse, there are occasions where they do sort of go into the science of how things work. And they'll explain here and there little bits and pieces. But in this, you will just see a guy who does not explain the definitions of anything. And then we'll go on to say that, what we did was we used the antenna to transmit the modulator. And when we transmitted the modulator, the white noise coherence helped us to correlate the system such that we could feed the data in 32-bit format back into the computer. And then the transmitter would attach to the chair and the chair would project. And it's just like...
This is reminding me of a quote that goes, if you can't explain whatever you're doing to a 5-year-old, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part about it is the kind of thing where if you were to pick up this book and read it, and you didn't know anything, you might go, "Oh wow, this seems plausible." I was reading it and I was like, "This seems wrong, but I don't know enough about electromagnetics to argue with you." Like I genuinely don't understand how anything works here. Like to give you guys the gist of what happens in this book. According to Preston Nichols, back in 1990, he was messing around with a delta time antenna, which, by the way, later in the book, he basically describes all of the delta time stuff and says that it happens in the receiver, not in the antenna itself, even while saying that it happens. There's a one point in the book where one sentence literally says that the delta time function is done by the antenna, and then another sentence later, he says that the delta time function occurs in the receiver, and I'm like, okay, I don't understand anything of what you're... By the way, delta time means change in time. He's very, very adamant that in science, delta means change. So the delta time function is, it changes time. Now,
Wait, what does delta mean?
Yes, exactly. Let me be clear. At no point in the book does he provide what the delta time function is.
Does he give any reason why he doesn't provide it?
No. He just says that eventually they came to understand it. Now, Aiden, how do you think that? Because I eventually get to this in the video, but how do you think they figured out the delta time technology?
I could be fun and say, like, well, they discovered it through the use of the magnetron hooked up to a specific level of antenna at a certain magnitude and amplification, but I'm going to assume it was aliens.
Oh, it was absolutely aliens.
Yeah.
But Aiden, it wasn't just any aliens. These were the Orion aliens, which is important because that technology came from the Orion aliens, but the other technology, Aiden, well, that came from the Syrians.
And
not the ones in Aleppo. The ones in the sky.
Like Sirius, the fucking asteroid or whatever?
As in Sirius, the dog.
Sirius.
Question, did the aliens refer to themselves as the Orion aliens?
It's unclear from the text.
Got it.
Listen, the texts are esoteric in nature.
Mm-hmm.
In case you guys are like really lost right now, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been doing the research all week, and I mean at this point I've done 2 episodes on it probably. I'm lost. I don't necessarily understand anything that's said. But to give you a gist, yeah, back in the 1980s, or in the 1970s and 1980s, they were doing this project. Who is they? We don't know. But they were doing it. And it was not, they in this case is not the Jews. They in this case is actually people who may or may not have been connected to the neo-Nazis. Now, what department of the government or the military or whatever, who knows? Maybe it was the CIA, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the aliens doing it and having us help them. But it was funded with Nazi gold.
Maybe NASA?
No, it was not NASA. Definitively not NASA, Aiden. Would never be NASA. So yeah, they do these experiments. It starts off with they are trying to do, well, originally actually, they're trying to do stealth technology. And the stealth technology accidentally opens a hole into the time vortex.
Mm-hmm.
And that messes everything up and it screws with our timelines. But they keep working on this project.
Wait,
And
time vortex? He uses the concept from Doctor Who to describe his time travel.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah. So it opens up the time vortex. People go into the time vortex. Now, throughout the 1950s, there's this thing called Project Rainbow. And late 40s into the 50s, Project Rainbow. And Project Rainbow is trying to do all this stealth technology with electromagnetics and everything. You might be familiar with Project Rainbow through its other more colloquial name, the Philadelphia experiment. Which, as we know, is a very real thing that definitely happened and was not made up by a guy named Carlos Miguel Allende, whose actual name was Carl Allen, who lived out near Pittsburgh. And this was all figured out years ago. No. Don't pay attention to any of that. Of course, it's always Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
I think it was like Somerset, technically, but
Fucking Somerset.
Anyway, I'm sorry. It's just so stupid. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself here. There's 2 projects. There's Project Phoenix and there's Project Rainbow. Project Phoenix is weather control. Project Rainbow is electromagnetic stealth, right? It's creating an electromagnetic bottle to teleport people who are inside of a boat into an alternate reality outside of time so that they can pass through space without being seen by anything else, which, by the way, just to be clear, is not what the Philadelphia experiment was, according to Carl Allen. That is what the Philadelphia experiment was, according to Al Bielek and some other guy, and Al Bielek eventually decided he was part of the Philadelphia experiment too, but he didn't remember it until the 1980s. Yeah, exactly. So Project Phoenix is weather control. Project Rainbow is stealth technology through electromagnetics. So they develop a system that puts people into an electromagnetic bottle, as he refers to it, that sends them outside of time. But the problem is that our souls are attached to a specific time reference point. So after our souls go into the bottle, if they're detached from the electromagnetic background radiation, then the soul and the body will be out of sync, which can cause madness. So they needed to find a way to fix that. And that's what Project Rainbow was trying to figure out, at first. But, then there were some issues that cropped up later. But the point here is that they also had another project, and that was Project Phoenix. And what is Project Phoenix? Well, Project Phoenix is we need to control the weather. How are we going to control the weather, Aiden?
Metals in the sky?
No.
Aliens.
No. You might say chemtrails, right?
Yeah.
Chemtrails would make sense. No. Balloons. Aiden, we're gonna control the weather with balloons. And not weather balloons, no, with radiosondes. What's a radiosonde? I don't know, to be perfectly honest with you, but it has something to do with sending a balloon up that transmits things back down to the ground. It has some rudimentary technology in it at first in the 1920s when it becomes a thing. But yeah, so the radiosonde is, as we know it, is not the real radiosonde. What we know is a radiometeograph, or as Nichols refers to it, a radiometrograph. And then he explains that metro means weather and graph means graph. It's meteograph. It's not metrograph. It's he just got that wrong. But don't worry about it. They invented this technology of being able to send something up into the sky to monitor the weather and collect data. They invented this in the 1920s, except they actually invented it in the 1890s. Might have been the 1870s, but that used kites. So eventually they figured out, hey, balloons and radios, we can do that. And we're going to send these balloons up, and the balloons are going to measure things, and they're going to radio the information back down, and then it's going to be recorded, it's going to be put on a card, and then it's going to be sent in to the government for them to, predict the weather based off of. But that doesn't make any sense, right?
Well, that just sounds like a weather balloon.
Well, yes, but here's the thing. I mean, Aiden, what you have to understand, Ethan, what you must understand is that, think about this. They're sending up the balloons. The balloons have the measurements in them. They send the data down by radio. The data is then collected. The data is written on cards, and the data is then mailed to the government, to another office, so that they can use that information to predict the weather. But that doesn't make sense. It takes a long time to mail something. How can you, if you've got it up in the sky right now, it doesn't help to know what's going on in the sky right now if you're trying to predict the weather, right? It can't be that they might be, studying weather patterns. No. It has to be about predicting the weather. So that can't be what the radiosondes are for. No, the radiosonde, Aiden, the radiosonde is only in appearance a weather device or a weather predicting device. In reality, the way this works is you send it up, and a device inside of it interacts with the descendant orgone energy.
Huh?
Because storms are, the violence of storms is impacted by how much descendant orgone energy there is. Now, what is orgone energy, boys? What do you think it is?
All right, I'm locked in here. I can only imagine it has to do with biotic organisms in the world that basically have some level of electromagnetism between each other, like the Force, which is a thing. That is, in fact, a thing. That's how sharks hunt things.
Right. Precisely. No. It's the orgasm energy that permeates the universe.
You're kidding me.
Not even a little bit.
Can we even use that word?
I think so. At least once.
Go on.
Yeah, so in the 1940s, this guy named Wilhelm Reich is like, hey, I realized that everything in the world is just orgasms. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how to make the sky more horny.
I wonder if he
the sky wasn't
ever had a conversation.
The sky was not horny enough, Aiden. That was the problem. That's what's causing the thunderstorms.
I see. So rain
when the sky has a low libido, it rains.
Wait, what does delta mean again?
Change.
I would imagine that would have been a high libido scenario.
No. Storms were caused by the descendant orgone energy, DOR. No, you needed to send things up to raise it, to even it out. You wanted to make sure that the energy was properly balanced. And that, Aiden, would help dissipate the storms. Now, you might be asking, how on earth is this relevant to time travel? And having read the book at least 4 times in the last week and taken notes on every single step of it, I can tell you with certainty that it is not connected in any way. Except for one thing, which is that apparently the reason that the guy who they used, the psychic they used to do all of their experiments, Duncan Cameron, well, he had to put himself they put him while he was in the chair to do all of the mind control, into a state of sexual bliss. And that's what allowed him to, this altered state of mind is what allowed him to do the mind control from the chair.
I should work for the government.
And also, you must understand that this chair is just surrounded by a whole bunch of coils that do something.
The lengths that humanity will go to bust a nut.
Yeah. Dude, as I've told you in the past, Muhammad was just trying to bust a nut.
Well, that's not going in.
And it went horribly wrong. You know, they were like, we could make a religion out of this.
That is most cults.
Yeah, it really is.
This is making me realize that we should start a conspiracy grift. Like, I didn't
Oh,
know.
for sure.
It is
We've been
insane
talking
how
about it
easy-
for years.
It's insane how easy. We could all
You
decide.
just say things.
Right. And, yeah. I don't know why we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, you literally can just say things.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the thing about what the level of credibility you are at on this stuff is people will absolutely believe you if you're like,
I know.
everything I debunk is bullshit, but this one is right. People.
Yep. And I'm reading through this thing, man. And I'm like, okay, so this makes no sense. This is total BS. Mm-hmm. But why? Why would you make that up? Well, you read into it a little bit further, boys, and here's what we find out. Actually, no, hang on. I gotta push a little bit further into the Montauk Project. Mm-hmm. So the point, because you got to understand why the mind control happens and everything, and how this connects to the TV series Stranger Things.
I really do.
Basically in the 50s, they merged Project Phoenix and Project Rainbow because what they've discovered is that the problem with both projects is the human element. Now, how is the human element a problem in Project Phoenix, which again is the weather balloons that deal with the sexual energy of the sky? Well, that actually never gets explained in the book. It's just they mix these two things together because of the human factor, and you just have to understand that somehow that makes sense. It's something to do with the radio waves, I guess. I don't know. They go and they start doing the Philadelphia experiment, or not Philadelphia experiment. They go into Project Phoenix Stage 2, which is the wrapped up of the two kinds. And what they do during that is they start looking into how you shove people into the electromagnetic bottle, like what they did during the Philadelphia experiment, without them going completely insane. And so they do some testing, they do some theorizing, they come up with it, and they go to Congress to defend their funding and ask for more. And they're like, okay, Congress, here's what we've learned. And Congress is like, you know what? I think this might work, but what if it fell into the wrong hands? We shouldn't do this, which Congress, as we know, the U.S. government, when presented with technology that has an applicable military use, has always asked the question, well, what happens if someone else gets their hands on this? They've never, ever done anything irresponsible for the sake of getting an edge up on whoever we're fighting at a given time. No. So,
quick aside, really quickly, I love the idea of renaming either my Google Gemini, which I don't have, or my Garmin, which I don't have, to Congress, so I can say, okay, Congress, and then ask it to do something.
Yep.
It stuck out to me.
I do like that. So yes, they ask Congress. Congress is like, no. But you see, the people at Brookhaven National Laboratories, which is where Project Phoenix was taking place, they aren't okay with this.
Where in the U.S. is this?
Long Island.
Okay.
Eastern Long Island. So they're like, you know what? Let's take our technology, let's take our knowledge, and go to somebody who will take it. You know who will is the military. And we'll just tell them all they got to do is give us facilities. We'll fund it with all this Nazi gold we somehow have. And so they do that, and they set up a project, and they do it at Montauk Air Force Base, which of course had closed in 1970, except it didn't. It was actually fully operational until 1981, just in a different capacity. They used it for FAA radar because the SAGE radar network system was made obsolete by over-the-horizon radar and satellites. So they use this for FAA purposes. At least that's the cover story. And this is what Preston Nichols is told when he approaches in 1974 after realizing during his psychic research that radio frequencies were messing with his psychic's abilities to do psychic things. And he was like, where is this coming from? And he realized that it was coming from something that was generating a radio frequency between 410 and 420 megahertz. Those numbers are important. And so they go. So this is in 1974 that he discovers all of this. Now, as we're going to learn later, Preston Nichols was actively working on the Montauk Project in 1974, but he was existing on two separate realities at the same time. But he also forgot all of this because he was brainwashed in one of the realities, and this has somehow affected him in both realities, even though he was experiencing both realities, but not remembering both realities as he was experiencing them. Okay, so they start up the Montauk Project. And what is the Montauk Project? Well, first they need a chair. What do we call it? The Montauk Chair. The Montauk Chair is based off of a technology invented in the 1950s by ITT Corporation. Who did ITT Corporation get the technology from? Obviously, the Syrian aliens. Once again, not the Syrians in Aleppo.
I just need to confirm. Is that conjecture or is that actually in the book?
That is in the book.
Okay.
Yes. Well, no. The rumor it is rumored that it came from the Syrians. Throughout the rest of the book, we just kind of say that it came from the Syrians. You okay over there, buddy?
Oh yeah, my mic thing was a little loose. Was making sure that I was actually audible for the previous 20 minutes, but we're good.
Yeah. So it's only rumored that anything came from the Syrians or Orion, but of course we're going to operate on the assumption that that is where they came from because that's what makes the most sense. So
Naturally.
ITT has the special chair. What's the special chair do? Off the top of my head, I cannot remember.
I like to sit in the Montauk chair and watch.
Yeah, but so they realize. So here's the thing. What they realize is that if you take somebody and you put them in the chair allows them to enter some weird electromagnetic state. You put them in the chair, and then what do you do after they've been put in the chair? Well, you take that giant antenna on top of the Montauk Air Force Base, the radar antenna, and you point it at a room. And you put a person in the chair in that room. The chair has a bunch of coils and receivers hooked up to it. And then you just fire the radar at them.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know how any of this works. I am a history person. I don't know how radios work.
Wait,
But they take a giant radar antenna.
and they just blast.
They just point it at a dude in a chair. And they just blast him. Now this
Does that
room
not
is shielded.
give you like testicular cancer or something?
Yeah,
Like-
no.
According to Preston Nichols, Duncan Cameron, the guy in the chair, was being microwaved alive.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I was gonna say, because here's the thing, because I have
He survived for many years.
there's a radar on my boat that I was working on throughout, the summer because it's very old. It functions mechanically, but there's not good signal. I need to upgrade the
Beeps, the creeps, and the sweeps.
pretty much, yes. And every part of my research for that, they were like, "Hey, yeah, that's a relatively low scale radar. But when you're working on it and testing it, whether or not it's operational, don't stick your head above the canopy when it's operating, or you will microwave your brain to mush.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot. That's a small boat radar.
No, this is like early warning radar.
Yeah.
Well, the room was shielded.
Ah.
The door didn't work properly. So like he did get some of the radiation did get through, and they eventually they found that like they were basically microwaving Duncan Cameron.
Classic.
And they were like, we got to find a way to not microwave Duncan Cameron. So what they realized was that if you turned the radar around, the antenna around, you pointed it the other direction, then the non-burning radiation that would come out the back of it somehow did the same thing because it was at a frequency of between 425 and 450 megahertz, which is right where the sweet spot was for activating and getting into somebody's brainwaves. If you fired it between 425 and 450, then you could actually, control people's minds. And
You said 410 to 425 earlier.
yes, I did.
You okay? Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, continue.
I did not misspeak.
I know. Yep.
Early in the book, it's 410 to 420. Later in the book, it's 425 to 450.
Got it.
This is never addressed.
I was going to say there's no recognition of the change in numbers.
It is never addressed.
Okay. Good to know I am paying attention.
Yeah. So they're able to now still hit him with the right frequency without microwaving him.
Got it.
But, of course, as a result of being microwaved all these times, they do find out later in the 1980s that Duncan Cameron, if you take scans of his brains, contrast CTs, he refers to them as X-rays, which technically contrast CTs are like X-rays, which is why you can really only get like 3 or 4 of them before you get cancer, or before your chance of cancer rises.
I was going to say, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You X-ray a person's brain 30,000 times, multiple times, and
You're getting cancer.
it
Yeah.
starts to give you problems. So this doctor basically, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The psychics realized that Duncan Cameron, when they tried to give him psychic readings, they couldn't. They were like, "There's no brain function. I can't get into his brain. I can't understand." And they're like, "Is he brain dead?" So Nichols is like, he goes to a neurologist. He's like, "Hey, doctor, my buddy, he's getting all these weird psychic readings. They say that he's brain dead. And the doctor's like, well, you see, it is possible for somebody who's brain dead to walk around and behave normally. Well, yeah. So, and he's like, actually, believe it or not, I was reviewing some scans. I had a patient way back, like 10 years ago, who came in, and I scanned his brain, and he was brain dead. And, he shows him the contrast CTs, and like, you see these red parts, these are the parts where there's oxygen. These blue parts, these are the parts where there's no oxygen, or where there's less oxygen. High red means lots of oxygen, blue means little oxygen. So these parts where there's little oxygen just don't need that much of it. Now, the red parts, those are the very active parts of the brain. But what you must understand is that he then pulls out this other one and puts it up, and it's just blue. The whole brain, blue. And the doctor's like, yeah, I had this patient. His whole brain is blue. It's weird, but you know what? His only real problem is that he suffers some memory loss issues.
It wasn't possible that that person at that time of the CT just had an even distribution of oxygen in their brain?
No. Also, that person was Duncan Cameron.
Ah.
Yeah, believe it or not, this random neurologist had also studied this exact person who's involved in the experiment.
Ah.
So Duncan Cameron is officially brain dead this whole time. Now, how does that work, Aiden? How is it possible, Ethan, that somebody who has no real brain function could possibly be walking around, talking, doing things, right? Well, the doctor said that he couldn't say for sure, but his only real theory is that Cameron's psychic energy was simply so powerful that it allowed his brain to operate using only his brainstem and spinal cord. And that his brain had just enough energy in it to keep it from rotting. Just enough oxygen in it to keep it from rotting. This is in 1988, which is several years after the experiment ends, by the way. Also, they had Barry Goldwater look into it. He couldn't find anything.
Who was Barry Goldwater?
Senator Barry Goldwater.
Okay.
Like former presidential candidate Barry Goldwater.
Okay.
Yeah. He's not named. But they basically give all of the necessary identifying information for me to come up with the conclusion that this was Senator Barry Goldwater.
For any specific reason that he would look into it? Was he a doctor?
He was an Air Force general before he was a senator. So that's the only reason I can think that they would have picked him.
Okay.
And in 84, right after the base closed down in 1983, base closed down in 1981, by the way, there was nothing going on there. And he does account for this, of course. Nichols says that in 1981, they let most of the staff go. But then they brought in a whole bunch of new maintenance technicians to make sure that the staff was running, the base was running properly, even though there was actually nothing going on there in 1981. Onwards, but there was something going on there from 1981 onwards. Also, the fact that we're in multiple timelines doesn't even matter. He also worked with a lizard guy named His Highness Draco. Yeah, when he was at BJM, which obviously is AIL. Yeah, if you're going to give a fake name to something, the best way to do it is to take each letter of the acronym and then just take the letter immediately succeeding it in the alphabet.
Remind me, what is AIL?
It was a defense contractor. I think it's still a defense contractor that was based in Long Island. I don't know exactly what they do. Point is, that's where he was working throughout this time period. But he was also, he just didn't remember it, working on the Montauk Project. Now, what is the Montauk Project? Well, it starts out, everybody. It starts out as trying to figure out how to do mind control. And what they're trying to do is use this specific frequency to influence people's thoughts. They find that different frequencies, different pulse rates, whatever, will make people have different emotions, different reactions. It can make them agitated. It can make them commit crimes. It can make them sad. It can make them horny. All these different things. But then, as time goes on, they find a way to perfect the system such that Duncan Cameron can actually project his own psychic energy into somebody else's mind.
Of course.
Just by holding a lock of their hair.
Okay.
And having talked to them on at least one occasion. He can present himself into their mind, and then their thoughts become his thoughts become their thoughts. So they can directly influence people's thoughts and beliefs by just projecting Duncan Cameron into their minds. So then something weird happens, which is that they realize that it's not just that he can jump into people's minds. He can also tap into the psychic energy and manifest objects. Yes, he can manifest objects. So he's manifesting everywhere. He's just manifesting all over the place. He'll make an apple appear somewhere. He'll make a ball appear somewhere. But then something strange happens, which is that they start appearing, but not at the right times. He'll be in the chair at 8 p.m., but the apple he is manifesting appears at 6 a.m.
Before or after?
I don't know. It isn't clear about that.
This whole thing sounds like one of those short stories on the SCP Foundation website
yeah.
where you're like, does this guy not have a job? How long is this?
Yeah, it's pretty long. Yeah,
Also, just for one little piece of information here, AIL Systems became EDO Corporation, and then EDO Corp was bought by ITT Corp in 2007. What they do is basically repairs and upgrades to electronic systems in military aircraft.
that sounds right. That sounds like the kind of thing this would be.
Yep.
So what does Delta mean again?
I hate you. You're fired.
Some may say that AIL is responsible for Delta Electronics in aircraft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Anyway, they discover through this issue of Duncan Cameron. But first, they discover that Duncan Cameron can manifest objects as a side effect of mind control.
Classic.
And then they discover that he is during some of these experiments, it seems like he's no longer transmitting his thoughts through the whole system. And they realize that he's just transmitting them on a different time stream. And so they need to figure out how to make sure everything stays on the correct time stream. And in doing that, they also discover that they can bend time. And if you can bend time, that is way more important than mind control. So they start focusing on the whole time bending thing. They send all of the engineers who are responsible for the project out to what they call Sigma conferences.
You're kidding.
I am 100% serious. They go to the Sigma conferences out in Olympia, Washington. Yeah. So they're at the Sigma conferences, and they figure out that they have the technology to bend time, but the antenna and the power source and everything aren't strong enough to prevent the side effect of the time shifting.
Does he explain what it means in context to bend time, or does he
No.
just use that phrase because it's... Yeah,
Yep.
Okay, yep. All right.
Let's see Preston Nichols' Delta time.
Yeah. So this is where the Orion antenna comes. The Orion Delta T antenna comes in. This is very important. So they have this, and they have some prototype technology from the chair, and the Orion antenna is really big. It's 100, anywhere from 100 to 150 feet, which is definitely the kind of range that makes sense to say. Like, that's not, a ridiculously broad range to say if something was about this size.
Yeah, I mean, within radio wavelengths. So I've been looking into this a bit because I'm planning on getting like a CB and VHF radio for my truck. The length of your antenna very specifically allows specific frequencies to be picked up by
Well,
that
Aiden,
antenna.
you must understand that this antenna was underground and encased in concrete.
Huh?
Well, yeah, because what it did was connect to the transmitter. And the Montauk chair is in the middle, which creates a null point
Where's the transmitter?
on top.
What is it transmitting to?
It's transmitting the thoughts into the world.
Into the world.
Well, you must understand, Aiden, that back in the early 1900s, science accepted the existence of the aether,
Yes.
and that originally, it basically the fact that there's a field through which certain kinds of matter can move, like light can move.
Right. This is what the Tartarians were absorbing through their towers was the atmospheric energy.
Exactly.
Got it. Yep.
And Einstein was actually an early proponent of this theory. But then he realized that it had to be something slightly different. And Wilhelm Reich figured out that it was actually the orgasm energy. That was the aether. My head hurts. Hang on.
That's the great setup for a porn parody of Star Wars. The Orgasm Force.
So, I'm trying to remember where we're at here.
We're at the 100 to 150 foot.
Yeah, right.
Radar,
the Orion
radio.
Tower, which functions in accordance with the Syrian chair. Anyway, they figure out how to make everything work, how to stabilize the time portals. And they realize that you can open a portal from one time period to another, and they start sending some people through it, but then Cameron is having some trouble making sure that the time portal stays where it's supposed to stay, and it starts drifting through time, so they lose a few people. They just send people back in time, and then those people can't find the portal again, so they're just stuck in the 1960s.
I was going to ask what time they were sent to.
This is like happening in 1979, 1980. 1980 rolls around. Late 1981, in fact, rolls around, and it's at that point that they finally figure out how to stabilize everything. So in February of 1981, they fire everybody, and then they bring in a new team of technicians who have a different responsibility. Now, do you notice a problem with this chronology?
I tuned out for half a second.
You just were talking about all this stuff that was going on in 84, right?
Yeah, that's not the point.
Not the point. Okay.
He says that the original team stabilized the technology.
Okay.
Or perfected the technology so that Cameron could present a functional, stable portal through time in late 1981. Then, a page and a half later, in the next chapter, he tells us that all those guys who figured that out in late 1981 had been fired in February of 1981.
Oh, yep.
And that's when they bring in the new technicians. And the new technicians are like, their job is when you open up the portal, you can actually sample the air from the other side without entering the portal. So they send these instruments through to sample the air and the soil and everything without going through the portal themselves. And they realize that you can only really do so much there, and they need test subjects. So what do? They start going and grabbing people off of the street and sending them through the portal.
Was one of these people Charles Manson?
No, but they do. He does refer to these people as winos and derelicts.
This is sounding like
I
the
assume
most...
he means like alcoholics, junkies, and homeless people.
Yes, this is sounding like the most realistic element of what the United States government would do.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they start sending these people through, and then they realize very quickly that, sending a bunch of alcoholics who have had a week to detox through a tunnel in time and then telling them to report back what they found isn't the most particularly productive way of doing things. So they start sending them through like TV and radio equipment so that they can view in live time. You might recognize this from the Call of Duty Zombies storyline, where they basically do that. So they figure that out. Then at some point they also figure out, but they still haven't totally figured out how to stabilize the location. So you knew when you were going, but you didn't necessarily know where you were going. That was a problem. Also, if the base lost power while you were in the tunnel or in the past, then the portal would shut down. Now, that was pretty bad if you were in the past because you didn't have a way to get back to the future. And since that they couldn't stabilize where the portal was going, it's not like they could reboot the power, turn it back on, and have the portal appear where it was supposed to be. No. If you were sent back to 1914 and the portal closed, you're stuck in 1914. However, if you're inside the tunnel, which is a spiral that you can somehow see directly through to the other side, this is never explained. At first he's like, it's a portal where a door opens here and a door opens over here, and you can look through this portal and see what's on the other side of that portal. But then later he says that the portal, when you enter it, actually forms a spiral that goes downwards, and yet somehow still you can see through to the other side, even though you would basically be going...
Well, like light bends through the portal?
I have no idea. Ethan. I do not know.
You know what's interesting to me about every instance in which people are trying to travel through time?
What?
That somehow either positioning is accounted for across time or it's not, when in reality, even if position were accounted for, if you go back in time from now to 10 seconds ago, you would be, I think, several thousand, if not tens of thousands of feet / miles in space away from where we are now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we don't travel in a circle, we travel in a spiral, inside of a spiral, inside of a spiral.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So where you are now and where you are now are pretty much hundreds of thousands of miles apart from each other in actual space.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the upside down, I think. Is that space between. My point is that if the portals were to collapse while you were in that space, you just get lost in hyperspace. Or the space between spaces. What?
The space between spaces?
Yeah.
You mean the pivotal line of understanding from the hit 2008 film Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, from which the aliens are from, according to Oxley, once they find him and he is no longer insane from having looked into the crystal skull.
Spaces.
I hate that you just made me realize those things are probably connected.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when they had Indy stare into the skull and he
Vaguely.
started to understand?
Yeah, I remember. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, people get lost inside of hyperspace.
I actually thought you did
Also,
that.
how many
reference on
people
purpose.
think? How many people do you guys think? Put your guesses in now, folks. How many people do you think got lost either in hyperspace during the portal collapse or just in the past in general?
I'm going to say at least 20.
At least 20.
Yep.
62.
Reasonable numbers, right? Reasonable numbers. Between 3 and 10,000.
It sounds like you're just feeding homeless people to portals.
How many derelicts are there in Montauk?
Well, they also went to the greater New York metropolitan area. You must understand this.
yes.
But they did grab a whole bunch of people off the streets of Montauk, and this is never referenced in any papers. I looked.
The government's going around New
Check
York
the
City, be like,
newspapers.
"Hey, get in. Yeah, okay, put that down. Get in the bus, buddy. We're taking."
Are we
you to
sure this isn't a cover-up for having discovered a portal to an eldritch horror that demanded souls in order to not infiltrate the Earth?
You know what? That would be a more reasonable take
I would
than the
believe
actual
that
book
more.
presents.
I would believe that
the idea
more.
that the U.S. government accidentally opened up a portal to some world where they demanded human sacrifices from us in order for us to not be like demolished by a space invasion makes a lot more sense than anything that happens in this book. By the way, in one of the sequels, yes, they're sequels, they kill Jesus.
What?
Yeah, they shoot Jesus.
He's already dead.
Well, they go back to before that,
Oh.
and then they shoot him.
Did that change anything?
No.
Who decided that, like, it'd be a good idea to assassinate the savior of humanity before he can do the saving of humanity?
I don't know, man.
Well, technically, he's still dying for our sins, just differently.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's not supposed to happen like Dirty Harry style.
Not supposed to, but...
So yeah, what was I saying? Right, the portals and the tunnels. Right, but they're not just sending homeless people, just the winos and the derelicts. You know, they're not just sending them. They also figure out that children can frequently disappear for 6 or so hours without anybody asking where they are. You know, it's the 80s. So, but by some point, this is never actually explained when this happened. Sometime between 1981, when they stabilized the portals themselves, and between 1983, when the experiment shut down. At some point in that time period, they did figure out how to send people to the same spot. And so what they did was they abducted all of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed young boys they could find and sent them to the year 6037 to the ruins of a city with a giant golden horse statue in it. And then they told them, hey, read what the giant golden horse statue says and tell us what you believe it is. And then they just came back. Now, what was the purpose of any of this? Preston Nichols doesn't know, but he thinks it had something to do with neo-Nazis.
Well, that would make a little bit of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Golden Horse feels slightly Trojan.
So these government agents are walking around Montauk, and they're going up to homes.
No, just the
knocking
greater
on-
New York metropolitan area.
Okay, no, yeah, but they're knocking on people's doors, and someone opens it, and they're like, "What does your kid look like?
No, they...
Blonde hair, blue eyes. We're gonna borrow him."
No,
for
that
a
would be
second."
ridiculous. No, they've got other kids whose job is to go out and find other blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids.
Yeah, I think they're just doing general kidnapping and human trafficking.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
No women, by the way. It's all boys. So Stranger Things got that part wrong.
Yeah, so they were trafficking people.
And they send all of these kids to the same spot and ask them, you know, to interpret the statue, and he doesn't know what it was about. I assume this probably gets answered later in the series, because there's like 4 of these books. But no, the big thing, the straw that breaks the camel's back happens in 1983, August 12th, 1983. Why is that date important?
August 12th, 1983?
Mm-hmm.
It's close to the...
It's
no,
because the Philadelphia experiment happened on August 12th, 1943. Based on the Earth's 20-year biorhythms, this was the time that they could tap into the main vortex using the 1983 anchor point to properly travel back to 1943.
Despite the fact that supposedly within the Philadelphia experiment, they did more than one experiment in which they were capable of transferring.
Yes, and the fact that the big Philadelphia experiment thing was supposedly in October of 1943.
Yes. And also that was a failure by comparison to the previous ones that were done.
Yes, I mean, it's just the whole fucking... I hate it so much. Yeah, so, but they figured out before this that the Earth had these 20-year biorhythm cycles, and that if you wanted to go to like 1990 then, and you were in 1980, then you had to connect to the 1983 anchor point and then go through that to get to 1990, and that stabilized the connection. Why does that work? He doesn't explain. It's kind of like calling the operator and being like, hey, can you connect me to 1990?
So did they ever try to go to the future with this, or is
They
it
do,
all the
yeah, they
past?
sent kids
Okay.
to 6037.
Remember the golden horse?
I think you said BC.
No.
Oh.
No.
AD.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
AD. Yeah, to the ruins of a city. where it
Oh,
all
I
appeared
thought
dead.
where
That's
it
why
was
I
going.
said the,
was-
the
yeah.
horse sounds vaguely Trojan.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's 6037 AD. It seems like it was into the future.
No, I was thinking the idea was send all these Aryan kids back to the past to then start the master race. So that,
Oh, good God. That would have made more sense, but they didn't do that. Oh, wait, I left. Yeah, right. So everything goes to shit in 1983. But before it all goes to shit in 1983, what they do is they're back. You know how late in the 70s the Viking spacecraft took pictures of Mars, and there was that little spot that looks like a face?
Yep.
Yeah, and how there looked to be pyramids near that face.
Yep.
Well, obviously those pyramids must be the remnants of an advanced civilization. So what do we got to do? We got to send people to Mars. In fact, we had sent people to Mars in 1962. The first manned mission to Mars was in 1962, and it was a joint U.S.-Soviet project.
We didn't want to go to the moon first?
Nope.
Decided to go to the moon 6 years later?
Yep.
It was 68 that we went to the moon, right?
I think 69.
That was
69.
69, so 7 years later.
Yep. Anyway, they had been to the moon, or they'd been to Mars before they had been to the moon. Maybe they'd been to the moon earlier. He doesn't really say. Anyway, they're like, you know what we should do? We should go to Mars in like 1980-ish. We should go to Mars. How are we going to get to Mars? Well, we can't ask NASA. No, we're going to have Duncan Cameron portal us to Mars. And they poke around for a little while to make sure they find the right Mars spot. Eventually, they're like, got it, projected right into the underbelly of one of those giant pyramid things. Duncan Cameron, by this point, they figured out how to record the brain waves that he uses and put them into the computer so that the computer can actually keep the portal open without Duncan even being in the chair at all. He just has to open it and then he can get out of the chair. So Duncan goes to Mars. Obviously, they're sending the only person who can really operate the machinery without dying on the mission to Mars.
Reasonable, yeah. Makes perfect sense, actually.
Preston Nichols is too essential to send him through the portal, but they can send the only guy who can open the portal through the portal. Preston Nichols likes to remind us that he was essential to the project as often as possible.
Does he explain why?
Well, he was the only one who knew how to operate the equipment.
Hmm.
They couldn't train anybody else to do that.
Ah.
Anyway, Duncan Cameron goes to Mars, and while he's on Mars, he finds some technology. The technology is not described.
Technology with a capital T, then. Yeah.
Duncan Cameron refers to the technology as the Solar Defense System. And then the Montauk Project people are like, you found the Martian Solar Defense System. Turn it off. And so he turns it off.
Was it on?
It was on.
Okay.
But you see, when he went to Mars, they didn't go to Mars in 1983. They went to Mars in 1943 for some reason. So when he turned off
Because of the
solar-
biorhythms.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when they turned off the solar defense system, what happened is that that's when the aliens started coming. The aliens who gave ITT the technology to create the chair in the 1950s.
Well, obviously,
Paradoxes and such.
Yeah,
Time is
Bootstrap
nonlinear.
paradox, yeah.
Yeah, so all of this, of course, has to do with the Philadelphia experiment. The Philadelphia experiment is the most important thing you must understand in order to understand how all of this worked.
It's a good thing we've already done a video
Because-
on that.
Yeah, because without the Philadelphia experiment, none of this could have happened.
Precisely.
You know what I think? I think Preston Nichols was in a cult in Long Island where they LARPed as top secret government officials and trafficked blonde kids.
No, I think Preston Nichols lived near the
guys
Montauk Air Base.
You guys have no idea how dark this is about to get.
I was going to say, my guess is that he lived near this air base, really wanted to be a part of it, broke in at one point, was sitting next to a radar, and got cooked.
Literally cooked.
And then, in his malformed, cranial state, devised this entire hallucination and decided to write it down.
Oh,
Makes
you
sense.
guys have no idea how dark this is about to get.
I'm ready for
Let's
it.
hear it.
So anyway, he turns off the solar defense system, and that's why the aliens can come here now, and that's how we get in contact with the Syrians and the Orions and all of that stuff. I guess the Martians 125,000 years ago.
Say that one
when
more
they're-
time.
What?
The Syrians and the what?
Orions.
A little faster.
Syrians and Orions? Syrian and Orion? Syriani?
Nope.
Where are we going?
Orion, Aryan.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, yes, the Syrians, the Orions, the Syrianis. The Philadelphia Eagles are on the moon. Anyway, he shuts off the solar defense system. And after this point, Nichols and some of the other technicians, and Cameron as well, begin to be like, you know what, I feel like we're kind of messing with things a little too much here now that we've turned off the solar defense system and everything and sent all these Aryan kids into the future and sent all these homeless people into the past. You know what, I think we might be messing with the karmic value of the planet.
I'm realizing there is a great comedy series in
Oh,
here
yeah.
somewhere.
So they come up with an idea, and they're like, all right, if we ever feel like, things are just too out of hand, and we've got to put a stop to this. They're not just going to, refuse to do it or destroy the equipment. No, that would be ridiculous. They're going to have a code phrase where they walk up to Duncan Cameron while he's in the chair, and they say, the time has come, I believe is the exact code phrase.
Easy to remember.
And so this happens on August 12th, 1943. On August 12th, 1943, or 1983, what happens is they open the portal, but then they look through the portal, and on the other side, there's a boat. Now, what's the boat? The boat is the USS Eldridge. That's the ship from the Philadelphia experiment. And they didn't plan for it to be there. It just appeared. And they realized that the portal and the machine and everything have now made a connection without anybody intending to make this connection. So the portal is acting with a mind of its own. And so what they do is they walk up, they're like, all right, well, this is enough. We've now lost control of the technology. Somebody walks up to Cameron. He goes, the time has come. And Cameron summons the Demogorgon.
Oh.
Except it's not the Demogorgon. It's described, I shit you not, basically as Bigfoot. It's a 9-foot tall, hairy, angry, hungry beast that rampages around the entire base, starts destroying things, eating everything in its path, destroying things in its path. And they're like, we got to shut it down. Because they can't just have Cameron, shut it down himself because he's in his sexual bliss state.
Right.
Yeah. He's just...
With the coils.
Yes. What you must understand is that in order to summon the creature, Cameron had to be edging the whole time. So
He was the literal first, as we know it, Edge Maxer.
Oh, yeah. So Cameron's in the chair edging, and the monster is rampaging, and they're running around trying to turn off the transmitter because they didn't think about the possibility that this might happen. And so they unplug everything, and it stays on, and they shut down all the power, and it stays on, and they use an acetylene torch to cut the wires leading from the power station into the transmitter unit, and it stays on. Because as they would later find out, the whole system had entered a free energy state because it was actually it was actually the transmitter and the generators on board the Eldridge that had connected with the transmitter in Montauk through the whirligig, which of course was the same whirligig. I can't do the whirligig thing right now. I still don't get it. It's a zero-time reference generator that Tesla apparently came up with in the 20s. That locks into the Earth's connection to the universal zero-time point, around which all of the universes spin. It's the very beginning of time, because that's at the center of the universe.
Whirligig just sounds like another term for a physicist means to describe God.
Yeah. So that's why everything's... So eventually he just starts cutting everything with the acetylene torch, which I assume he probably had to refill several times over the course of this. Meanwhile, the monster is still out there. Eventually he cuts enough stuff that the transmitter ceases to function. Okay. and it shuts down, and the monster disappears, and they the whole base is destroyed. None of the machines work anymore, and that's when they're like, all right, well, I guess we gotta shut it all down, and they just brainwash everybody and kick them off the base. Never mind that August 12th, 1943 is not the date of the Philadelphia experiment, and that kind of throws a wrench in all of these things. Let me tell you, writing this episode, the hardest part was burying the lead that it all falls apart based on the simple fact the Philadelphia experiment did not happen, as well as all the other many problems. So, where are we? Yeah, they've shut everything down. There are 3 or 4 more books in this series, by the way. Also, they go and they find a guy named Reinhardt who has a bunch of, he's a physicist or something, and he's selling some radio equipment, but he won't sell it to him, but he will sell it to him, but he won't sell it to him, but he will sell it to him, but he won't sell it to him, but he will sell it to him. And the process of talking to this guy, it occurs to Nichols that this guy, Reinhardt, is actually Dr. John von Neumann, who is a German scientist who was brought over here to help work on all of these projects in the first place. Now, John von Neumann is a real person. Unfortunately for Preston Nichols, he's Hungarian and did not get his degrees in Germany. He got them in Hungary at the University of Budapest. So once again, wrong.
What did he do about Bigfoot?
Oh, he just disappeared.
Oh.
The machine shut down.
Is he saying that this is how Bigfoot started to exist?
No, he doesn't go that far. This also would be several years too late.
Right, that's what I was about to say.
Bigfoot,
yeah.
this
is an alien. So the Bigfoots are out there, and then they meet an alien Bigfoot that's running around, and
he doesn't call it Bigfoot.
If it's Bigfoot,
it's Bigfoot. It's always Bigfoot. Every time there's a conspiracy, it's Bigfoot. People say it's the Jews. No, it's Bigfoot. What they don't know is that Bigfoot's Jewish. You just gotta up the ante.
Yep.
So yeah, my point in saying all of this is that you might be wondering, why?
Yeah.
Why? What could any of this achieve? What is the purpose of coming up with this ridiculous conspiracy theory? So far, the only answer I can think of is that, well, it all actually, believe it or not, ties back to the fucking orgasm energy.
There is only one place it could have tied back to, and it's that.
Yep, because it's totally divorced from the rest of it. It's like this thing that comes up 3 times, never actually explains anything technologically. Well, as it turns out, they're in back in the 20th century, I hate saying that, but there was definitely a lot more going on in the conspiracy community in a different sense. Now it's all online. It's all in YouTube videos and on Twitter, and we're talking about it. But back then, you had to go to conventions to talk to the other nut jobs. And what you would do at these conventions is you would try and justify your behaviors and your beliefs and everything, and everybody would just kind of bounce ideas off each other and go even more insane. But what you have to understand is that Nichols, as somebody who was present at Montauk, was one of the only people who understood how you could deprogram all those Aryan kids. And I think I can't say what he did to deprogram them on YouTube, but he would find these Aryan kids who were convinced that they had been involved in the Montauk Project, because when you give somebody with psychosis or schizophrenia a book that tells them that they were experimented on by the government in the 80s and they just don't remember it, but they need to be deprogrammed, if they're insane enough, and most of these people were, and were no longer actually children, although Nichols says that he did do this operation on children in the past. This is also one of the only ways I can possibly describe this on YouTube. So these former people who had been involved in the experiments, who are the Ubermensch, what he will do is he will, in order to deprogram them, he has to put them back into the state that was used to program them. Do we remember what was used to program these people? It was the orgasm energy.
Yep.
So he takes these former test subjects and he puts them in a room and he lays them on a table and he jorks it.
I would imagine with coils.
Oh, yes,
around.
Of course, with coils around.
Yes.
So, as far as I can tell, the Montauk Project, the basis for the television program Stranger Things, came about because this fat dude wanted to jerk off Aryans.
I thought I was going to make it with a straight face through that sentence, but I didn't.
The lengths
I don't think
human
about the
will go
lengths.
to. The lengths a human will go to
To get
to
some
jork it. Yep.
I'm just... Can you imagine this weird, obese guy walking up to you and being like, hey, man, you remember back in the 80s when they programmed you? Show me your penis. Like,
I'll tell you what.
I can fix you.
I'm suddenly... I don't know if I should be happy or concerned about the existence of the internet right now. Because it keeps them all geographically separated.
You gotta keep them separated.
But there's a lot more access now.
Yeah. Apparently Preston Nichols was just a total sex pest. According to people who actually knew him. He was definitely into both boys and girls. So I mean, equal opportunity offender, I guess. Shockingly enough, there are talks from this guy on the United States Psychotronics Association website. And he also in the book says that he presented his findings at the United States Psychotronic Association conference in Chicago in 1986. The United States Psychotronics Association is not a scientific group. He just makes it sound like it is.
So does he ever account for why he was able to publish all of this and, was not found, having shot himself twice in the back of the head?
Oh, Barry Goldwater's nephew Lenny told him it was probably fine.
It's probably fine.
What do you mean?
I'm not kidding.
What does that mean? That what was probably fine?
Publishing the book. Well, you got to understand, Aiden, he does in the book explain that there are certain things he can't reveal about the projects he worked on at BJM because he signed a non-disclosure agreement, but he didn't sign any non-disclosure agreements about the Montauk Project.
Was Barry Goldwater's nephew somebody in government that had the authority to tell him?
Well, yeah, he worked for Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater did not have a nephew named Lenny or Benny.
Oh, so it's not even a real person. Okay,
I don't think it is.
So then my question doesn't matter. All right, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. So
when and where?
I gotta thank the Duffer Brothers for really only relying on the bare minimum of this experiment.
When and where did you find the details about the reality of the situation here?
That would be from de173.com, which is the website I used for the Philadelphia Experiment Project video, Philadelphia Experiment video, because the Montauk Project is obviously very closely tied into that, and that has a number of articles written by several different people, but it also has the citations for where in each book these things happen.
So you utilize the citations to figure out
Yep.
some of the dark realities.
It also it gives you direct quotes.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah. So in case you guys have been wondering why I seemed a little stressed out the last week,
This has just been, you've just been pumping this into your brain for a week straight. Wonderful.
Dude, honestly, this might be worse for me than the radar would be getting pumped directly into my brain.
I think you might be right.
We got to pray for one thing, which is that I never lose my mind, because I know too many things and I will start saying shit.
We know,
Like I would be a crazy person with far too great a backlog of ideas.
we know you're safe considering you still ask the question, am I getting too galaxy brained right now?
Yeah.
The moment you switch to stay with me.
Yeah. Now hear me out.
Yeah. Now that's okay. The moment you say, I know what I'm talking about, I'm not insane, like this, it makes sense. Then we're concerned.
Yeah, it's
And Delta
I mean, it's
means-
very. Can we get Bunker to make a shirt that says Delta means change?
Yes, we can. We might have enough time. Finally, that's the part about getting ahead. We need to
Yeah.
tell them this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I see, here's the thing, like, listening to this, you're probably, man, that was all pretty incoherent. It's like, it's not better in the book.
Here's the thing. If you're looking at it from a pure, like, logic standpoint, without knowing what any of it actually means, yeah, makes sense.
Also, one of my favorite parts of the book is that Preston Nichols, while working at BJM, gets caught trying to get into restricted areas by security no fewer than 3 times, and they don't fire him.
Because he was the only one who could work the equipment.
No, this is before that.
Oh.
Well, also at the same time as that. No, this is actually after that. This is in the late 80s.
Because of the multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting because, again, from a purely logical standpoint, oh, yeah, it makes sense. As soon as you know what any of this means, it all falls apart completely.
I actually would recommend people read the book because I can only do so much to give you an idea of the sheer degree of nonsense involved. Because honestly, the hardest part of writing the episodes for this has been somehow making this seem coherent. Because I was confronted with a dilemma, a quandary, if you will. How do I take this thing that is obviously bullshit from like chapter 2 and make an engaging video where you remain tied into the possibility that any of this is real? Because what I didn't want to do is just like, you know, do a video where I'm just basically going through every step of it and being like, and this is wrong because this, and this is wrong because this, and this is wrong because this. It would be entertaining, but it wouldn't be giving you the full scope of the Montauk Project. I wanted to tell people the story of the Montauk Project and then give them all the details of why it's wrong. But in order to keep somebody engaged in that story, I had to rewrite, not like change, but reorganize and adjust the introductions of so many different technologies and concepts that I spent more time probably like trying to figure out how to rewrite something to seem not insane than I did anything else.
Which is insane in and of itself, that task was necessary.
Because there's stuff where it's like talking about the Tesla receiver and how the coil structure inside the Tesla receiver performed the delta time function, but also they used Helmholtz receiver coils for something as a pickup coil, but he doesn't explain which coil did what or what the actual function of the pickup coil was. But somehow all of this shielded the chair from the outside energy that was causing the feedback. And the delta time function happened inside of the coil, but he talks about the Tesla coil and the Helmholtz coil, but he doesn't make it clear what each coil is doing. And then he says eventually that the structure consisted of only the coil, but he doesn't say which coil. And that the delta time function happened inside of the coil.
When was this published?
1992. Also, he says that they used a Hammarlund S600 Pro radio system to do something. The problem is that he says Hammarland. The brand is Hammarlund. Like Hammarlund is the actual brand. And the whole time he's doing this, he is claiming to be a radio junkie. He's really into radios and he knows how radios work and everything. But somebody who's actually really into radios would not make that mistake. I will be honest, perhaps the most confusing part of all of this is how Preston Nichols knew enough of the terminology to write this in a way that it wasn't immediately obvious he didn't know what he was talking about, while also having no idea what he was talking about.
It seems like he was aware of the pieces of technology that existed, but he had no real applicable knowledge of how they function.
He got his hands on a catalog of radio equipment from some business that sells it, and he's just like, all right, well, that name, oh, that's that, okay.
Yeah,
you
let,
know,
me, let me see if I can find a good example of him doing this. Okay, so here's an example. The other key point to understand is white noise. White noise can be considered the glue that makes the whole operation work. It basically made the whole transmitter system coherent. It is a highly technical operation, which I will simplify. This is the simplified version. Does he define what white noise is at any point in here? Oh, yeah. White noise is an impulse at every frequency at the same time. When you are tuning your FM radio dial, the noise you hear between stations is white noise. It can be thought of as a sudden burst at every frequency or a bunch of impulses thrown together. I have no idea if that's true. Anyway, so he says in his explanation for what this is. The SAGE transmitter, he says SAGE is S-A-G-E, as if it's the word sage. It's S-A-G-E, as in semi-automatic ground environment, I think. It's an acronym. It's the pre-over-the-horizon radar system that NORAD used to map the whole continent. Anyway, the SAGE transmitter contains something like 40 or 50 crystal-controlled oscillators, mixers, and amplifiers that generated a 425 megahertz signal. It also had frequency agility, which meant that it was able to spontaneously switch from one frequency to another. Along with the transmitter, they have what is called a coho, or a coherent oscillator setup. Normally, a coho would function by having only one frequency reference. However, this is not how the Montauk transmitter achieved coherency. In order to make it entirely coherent, we took every oscillator available and amplitude modulated it with white noise, since white noise is 50% correlated to everything. It serves a universal autocorrelating function. The result was that all of the etheric components of the oscillators were now coherent to each other. We weren't trying to correlate the normal electrical functions, as they didn't concern us. We were only interested in the etheric functions, as they gave us the results we were searching for.
my head hurts now.
I don't know what any of that means, or if it's real.
The universal autocorrelating.
The most bullshit thing in my mind in that is that white noise would be in any way, shape, or form have a utilization within that formatted structure.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. That's essentially like introducing chaos into an organized system to balance out the system.
You guys want to see the picture of the Montauk chair? It's kind of exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, just imagine Preston Nichols standing next to that, hungrily eyeing this guy like P. Diddy.
Yeah.
And you've basically got the whole point. Honestly, Diddy would love this.
I feel like he got some ideas from this,
Yeah.
actually.
Trying to see if there's anything else in here that's worth really quickly going over. Also, one of my favorite parts is that they couldn't figure out how to make the chair work properly because they didn't have the original crystals from the Syrians. So they put out a call for defense contractor bids, like secret bids, and the one that won was RCA. They put this call out in late 1975, and RCA came back with the chair prototype that would work in late 1975.
Quick turnaround.
Yeah.
Hey, so I need a chair that people
Yeah.
can sit in to achieve sexual bliss and fuck with radios. And RCA was like, we've got one of those.
Literally, yeah, we got one of those in the back, man. Like,
Dude, we've been using these for
Tesla
years.
came up with this years ago.
Yeah. we thought no one ever asked.
It's like, yeah, we've just been putting this thing in the corner of hotels. Yeah, but here, like, for example, the setup of the Montauk chair was also enhanced using Helmholtz coils. These were placed around the chair to serve as pickup coils. In ordinary electronics, Helmholtz coils consist of two sets of coils. They possess a unit. Also, the word coils was used so many times. Do you know how hard it was as somebody who actually understands writing and has proper creative writing and just writing training in general to write through this without reusing the word coils 8 billion times? It was impossible. I used the word coils 4 times in one paragraph. I hate myself. Anyway, at Montauk, the researchers extrapolated upon the principles of... they possess a unique property in that they can be phased to create a constant field of energy inside the coils. Also, he put of energy in parentheses. You don't need to put of energy in parentheses there. You just constant field of energy. You don't need the parentheses.
Also,
Constant field.
also
Energy.
What other kind of field will we be talking? It's not like you talked about 8 different. It's not like you were like, yeah. So, well, one of the fields at Montauk was a football field, and then we also had just a meadow that was its own kind of field, and no, you don't need to tell me what kind of constant field it is. Obviously, it's energy.
But what kind of energy?
Sexual. No, electromagnetic. Constant field of energy inside the coils. At Montauk, the researchers extrapolated upon the principles of Helmholtz coils. They used 3 sets of coils, X, Y, and Z, and phased them so that while a constant energy could be maintained inside the coils, there was absolutely no effect on the outside. The coil structure in the receivers designed by Tesla was ideal for the Montauk Project. Not only would the chair be in a coil structure, but so would the receivers themselves. This would shield the energy field. It also should be noted that the coil structures in the Tesla receivers were also known as delta T or delta time coil structures. The property of shielding an energy field is part of what enabled a bottle effect to be created around the USS Eldridge in the Philadelphia experiment. These delta T coils were actually picking up 3 axes of time signals. More pertinent to the project, they no longer had a microwave link that would malfunction during a reality shift. To get the Montauk chair operating without interference, they had to replicate what the crystal receivers did with the Sirian technology. The coil structures in the prototype receivers were delta time coil structures. And the receiver itself did the delta time function, but not the antenna. The delta time function was in the antenna instead of the receivers.
How can a function be in something?
No, the RCA version used a standard type Helmholtz pickup coils that could accomplish the delta time conversion in the receivers, which I was just told were in the antenna.
What I don't understand.
I had to find a way to tell this story. I had to find a way to explain this.
Everything that is said demands more questions be asked. Where are they getting their power generation from?
Well, I think it was they only needed 250 kilowatts, according to him.
That's how much power he said they needed.
Yep. 250 kilowatts to run this system.
Are they just plugging into an AC circuit?
He does mention AC.
I don't think tri-wave AC existed at this time, so why would they have needed 3 coils?
Well, Aiden, what you need to understand is that the whole point of all of this was that now the antenna, the transmitter, and the coil were in the same time plane, but the computers were in their own time plane. It didn't matter they had the chair underground and the Cray and the 360 in the other building, those are the computers, feeding back to the transmitter building. When everything is digitized, one is no longer in real time. A fake time is created. The computers could have been located anywhere. The computer building was designed to operate computers and shielded out electromagnetics and energy from the antenna so that the electromagnetics and energy didn't drive the computer insane. The operation center was totally shielded in cement and steel. What's the problem here, Aiden? This whole thing drove me insane. That's the problem.
The computer building was designed to operate computers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on.
I mean, it's just... By the way, the reason that the Tesla receivers had the reason the Tesla receivers were important is that these Tesla receivers had very special coil structures. Now, what was so special about them? Well, they were normal type radio coils, but were arranged in strange coupling patterns that set up and designed by Tesla. Never explains it.
Okay, so I was wrong. Three-phase AC has been used for a very long time. It's been the standard for quite a number of years.
Yeah. So
what did you learn, Mattis?
I think I lost IQ points.
Yeah.
I learned that I do not understand radios at all. Or maybe I do understand radios better than I think, and I'm now just confused.
Yeah, because I know nothing about radios, but at a bare minimum, the cement feels like it's an issue.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
No, it's yep. Well, because there's the thing up on the surface, but it also it makes no fucking sense because first of all,
I want to have somebody who does know how radios work
I
on the show so we can read these things to him.
I would love that because I have a very, very, very surface level understanding of radios. Like,
Gonna be honest, based on how you're dressed right now, you do not look like the kind of guy who would have any understanding of radios.
That's fair. That's
or
fair.
the kind of guy who would very intimately understand radios, and nowhere in between.
That's valid. That's valid. I'm hoping to be the latter at some point in the not too distant future. Radios function, if we're talking about audio radios, by taking a signal through a microphone, turning that into electricity, beaming that electricity out via an antenna.
Yeah.
That electricity is basically ones and zeros for each band of audio frequency.
Right.
And then as it's beamed, it is received, which is then decoded, and then put out of a speaker with the proper decoding so that way your voice as spoken is replicated at the other end.
Yeah.
Radar, my understanding, is even simpler.
Yeah.
It is simply radio frequencies that are beamed out in varying angles depending on the type of radar that is then bounced back to the receiver at that radar to determine the size and location of a given object.
Yes. So if you shot it at concrete, you would get back concrete.
The frequency of radio waves is nowhere near powerful enough to go through concrete. It is stopped by a very thin Faraday cage. You need to get to, like, gamma rays to even attempt to go through concrete. Microwaves
You
can't
need
even
to
go through concrete.
understand that when everything is digitized, you enter a fake time.
So the concrete is in one type of time, and the radar's in another type of time.
I feel like this guy watched Back to the Future and got obsessed with coils. I don't understand the obsession with coils.
I don't know either.
They can function as resistors. They can function as transceivers.
I guess he was hoping that Layman would read the book and go, oh, he knows about radios because he knows about the coils.
Literally that.
100%. But the thing is if you know even slightly anything about radio.
Let me read you another one here.
Go ahead.
The transmitter had a modulation computer which was digitally fed the typical 32-bit code that the IBM 360 put out. The modulation computer and the transmitter were set. He never explains what he means by that. The IBM 360 would tell the modulation computer how to modulate the transmitter. Now we had a system where one could put in 32-bit words of data and the transmitter would give back something. And here the chair fed the receptors feeding the Cray 1, which would tell what the person was thinking. They had to take this and translate what was coming out of the Cray 1 and make it so that the IBM 360 could re-encode the thought form that was actually transmitting. It took a year to successfully link up the computers.
So hang on. The interesting thing there is that there's information there. There's valuable information there. It's what's not said that is the most important. How are they interpreting what a person's saying is? What are the mechanisms in which they are analyzing the electromagnetic brain waves that are happening inside someone's skull to then go into this process in any way, shape, or form and then confirm whether or not that is properly being encoded and decoded by anything?
Well, I can explain that one to you. 3 sets of coils were set up in a pyramid around the chair. There was also a coil around the top of the pyramid to parallel the base coil. The person would be placed inside the field of the coils. The 3 sets of coils were connected to 3 different radio receivers. This is where he gets Hammerland right or wrong, and 6 outputs. An independent sideband detector, which had a floating carrier reference system, would provide 6 outputs from the 3 receivers. 3 of them were off the sideband below the carrier wave. 3 of them were set up. Wait, that's in there twice. That sentence is in there twice. 3 of them were off the sideband above the carrier wave. This brings to mind a very important question. If this device was reading minds, what carrier wave was it using to do this? With the use of an oscillator, the detectors in the receivers were able to lock in on a phantom or etheric signal that was being picked up by the coils. There was no actual carrier wave as we would normally know it. The detectors would lock in on the noise peak that the coils picked up from the 3 sets of frequencies the receivers were tuned to. At this point, the research team was actually able to detect signals that represented the comparable functions of the human mind. Solid signals that would change with a person's thoughts were actually coming out of the receivers. This device was actually reading the human aura, which is a word that psychics and metaphysicians use to describe the electromagnetic field that surrounds the human body. In the same way that human speech is carried via radio waves, this device was carrying thoughts, which theoretically manifest in the aura. The 6 output channels from the receivers were then run through a digital converter, turning them into a computer language and fed into a computer. A Cray 1 computer was used to decode what the receivers were picking up. A lot of hard work and a lot more computer crunching got things to the point where the computer could print out a dialogue. This would be a running dialogue of what the person was thinking.
So here's the thing. There's a logic here, but the key missing link shows why it doesn't make sense. Because at any point in this, are magnets ever involved?
I don't know.
Do you remember the word magnet being used
Not
at any point in time?
Not independently of the word electromagnetic.
Okay, so here's my biggest problem with this. There is functionally, theoretically, a way in which this makes sense, in which you could theoretically pick up the electromagnetic frequencies that a human body is emitting in a variety of different ways. The only way that would sensibly be capable of being done is if, like with a radio receiver, receiving your voice and turning that into an electromagnetic signal, you are receiving the electromagnetic signal and turning that into data. The only way that we know, at least that I am very well aware of being able to do that, is basically the structure in which guitar pickups are designed. They are designed to utilize the frequency of the strings through magnets, which are being disturbed, that are surrounded in coils, and turn that into an electric feed.
Yeah.
That can then be put into an amplifier and redone into sound.
Right. But those coils are around something, and that something is a magnet. It's not just coils.
Now, granted, that's for sound,
Right.
but the same principle, as I understand, would exist for electromagnetic frequencies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would love to get somebody who knows radios a copy of this book and bring them on to discuss whether or not the book makes any sense.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be the next step.
Is Preston Nichols still alive?
No, thankfully he died in 2018. Now he can't jork off any more Aryans.
I would have loved for him to have been on Rogan.
Oh, God.
That would have been an interesting one.
Even Rogan probably wouldn't have been able to stand this guy. All right, everybody. As you can tell, my mental health is suffering, so please reward me for it by paying us on Patreon. That is all we really have to say. Thank you. My brain feels as though it has had a radar antenna pointed at it and had it fire somewhere in the range of 100 kilowatts of energy, based on what the book says. That doesn't sound right to me, but
Mattis, it's okay, because delta means change.
Amanda, fetch me my handgun.